Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Color Journey, How to Bring Color to Life. My name's Michelle Krzyzewski, and I am part of the X-Rite Pantone team. I'm a global portfolio manager for our training and professional services business. We have a three-part series for you, and our first part of the series is going to cover finding color trends and inspiration. So this is all about what's new, what's next, where we see color today, and where we think we're going to see it in the future. So color forecasting can come from a variety of different places. One of the ones that obviously I'm going to talk about today is going to be Pantone. So Pantone pretty much works and forecast color on the regular. It is what they do. It's a very big part of their business. So Pantone isn't the only one out there, though, that does color forecasting. Another group is called the Color Marketing Group. So we'll talk a little bit about what they do and the process that they go through for color forecasting. And finally, we don't want to limit you to just saying, here's some resources to pull from. We also want to enable you to become your own expert and say, hey, I don't care what the trends are today. I want to set my own color trends, but I don't necessarily know, how to get that inspiration or how to take what I see as inspiration and bring it into something physical and something tangible. So we'll just cover a little bit about how we can do that. So going through, I do want to talk about starting with Pantone and how they are pretty much where I tend to go to figure out color forecasting. So they actually have something called the Pantone Color Institute. And the Pantone Color Institute helps companies make informed decisions about color for their brands and products. So they do color trends and forecasting. They will also do like some custom brand color development and custom color solutions. So they will say, if you're a materials manufacturer and you want to kind of get a head jump on what might be the it and cool color for your industry, Pantone Color Institute can help you find that and also help you kind of navigate the ways that, you could use that color and market with that color. And by the way, all of this stuff can be found on our website here at www.pantone.com. And then a lot of the color trends and forecasting is going to be found under what we call our color intelligence tab. So the next thing that I have for you guys is talking about Pantone Color Institute and some of the more unique and fun things that they get to work on. So I have a short video. So I'm going to hit next here.
Adding new colors is a very thoughtful process for us. This came about because we were watching the Minions turn into global icons. So the inspiration for Pantone Minion Yellow really came from the Minions themselves.
Yellow is definitely a color that makes me feel happy.
Well, it represents joy.
Beach balls.
Sunshine.
Lemons.
Banana!
Banana!
It's just a fun color. You can't deny it.
We started with a whole bunch of swatches that were sort of inspired by the Minion Yellow color. It was sort of a process of narrowing it down to that one Minion Yellow color that really kind of represented the spirit for the Minion characters.
They have big hearts and they care about each other and you just fall in love with them.
I'm so proud of you boys!
At Illumination, we really try to create characters that have distinctiveness and appeal. And with the Minions, part of that distinctiveness is their color.
It's sunny, it's silly, it's bright.
These guys are iconic. So I think it's a wise decision by the good people of Pantone to
call it what it is, Minion Yellow.
You guys are crazy little and way yellow, and I dig that!
This was the first time that we have named a color after an animated character.
But it's yet another sign of how deeply these characters have embedded themselves.
It's really like an acceptance into pop culture that the Minions are now associated with this icon.
What was so amazing to me is we didn't have this yellow. It's vibrant, it's bright, it just captures your spirit.
It felt like a natural choice having a color representing them.
It's kind of an honor because Pantone is what so many creative people use to accurately describe color to each other and to the world.
What was exciting to me, this was a color coming from animation, coming from technology.
And for us, the fact that the Minions yellow is going to exist in the real world is really exciting. It's very cool.
I see them as unique, I see them as original, and that's what a design-minded company prizes. I think the Minions will be great ambassadors for Pantone.
All right, so that's a little insight to one of the things, of the many things that Pantone Color Institute has for us. So again, hopefully you found that entertaining, just to kind of get a sense of what we do and how it can be so unique and so special. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of color trends, color forecasting can be found at the Pantone website and under that Color Intelligence tab. So we have a mix of different paid and free content to really understand color trends and forecasting. So just kind of walking through, a lot of what we have is going to be like physical books, or what we have is our Viewpoint Color, which is a seasonal trend book dedicated to color. So this is something that comes out quarterly, and you get a sense of what's new and what's coming. So it's a combination of inspiration with context. It highlights in-depth analysis of emerging color stories and explains why they're relevant now and their current application. We also have Pantone Home and Interiors. So this is a color trends for the future. So this basically is a book that will go through with a lot of great imagery and give us insight into how these colors came, or what it's coming to and how they interact with each other. So it's kind of like the story of these colors now as they are. And you can purchase this book either alone, or you can purchase it with either like fabric swatches or plastic chips. So if you're really inspired by this and want to start communicating that color to, customers or vendors, you can have those standards at hand. And then the last thing that I'm showing here up on the screen is our Pantone View Color Planner. So this is a book that goes out into 2021. So we know the manufacturing process isn't super quick, and sometimes it's not always as reactive as we would like it to be. So it's important that we understand what type of color trends are coming in the future so we can prepare our process for that. So this one, for example, is looking into the spring, summer of 2021. So you can kind of get that jump start into what are those top colors that'll be important, and it's across a bunch of different applications. So it can be fashion, active clothing, color cosmetics, interiors, industrial, fashion and home, kitchen and bath. So it's not just one thing. It's not just for fashion, even though that's where it kind of kicks off and we see it the most as we live our everyday lives. But that fashion piece tends to lend into other industries that we start to see those colors come up and become more apparent. So we dive into, all the different industries into those future models of forecasting. So we also talk about As I mentioned, there's some paid resources and then there's some that are more free. So one of those free resources that you can take advantage of is our webinars. So if you're signed up for the Pantone emails, you will kind of get these events as they come and as we announce them. So the next one is going to be October 17th, and it's talking about our Botanica, the color forecasting for 2021. So if you haven't attended one of these webinars, I highly recommend it. It's really inspiring, and they're really interesting, the way that they go into the colors and talk about not just here's the color, here's what it is. It talks about the story behind it and how the intended purpose may be. So they'll even break it down sometimes into, we see this as silk as it kind of moves, or this could be a great color for something more like countertops. So they were really interesting webinars. They're about 30 minutes or so, and they're typically presented by Lori Pressman, who you saw in the Minion video. So another one of the webinars, and I have to say by far is our most popular one, is when we announce the color of the year. So typically we announce this in November-ish time frame, November, maybe early December. And we talk all about this one impactful color for the upcoming year. So if we do it, this December, it will be talking about 2020's color of the year and how it can be found across, again, a variety of industries. Here, looking at, textiles behind the name there, you can see maybe some cosmetic use. And if you don't already know, and if you can't tell by some of the images up on the screen, this year's color of the year was living coral. So if you have not heard about that, it's nearing the end of its cycle here as we come to a close of 2019. But, reflect back and think have you seen this color and where have you seen it? Do you start to see it if you attend shows like NeoCon, or are you starting to see it in the stores where you go, to a Macy's or a Nordstrom? Are you seeing it in the clothing lines? Are you seeing it on the red carpet? We get a lot of buzz as we start to announce these colors, as we see some of these movie stars really wearing and embracing that color of the year. It's quite exciting for all of us at Pantone. So as I mentioned, we're talking about color forecasting and the color of the year. So everyone is always asking me, they're like, hey, you work for Pantone. What is that color of the year? Let me know. I have to tell you, it is one huge secret. They really don't let many of us in on it. It's very, very few. But I can tell you that it will most likely, historically, it comes from the spring, summer 2020, which is released now. So of those chips up there that you see on the right-hand side, this is where we kind of get a glimpse to what that color of the year might be. And if I knew, I don't know if I would tell anybody, because then I would definitely want to keep it a secret so they would tell me in the future. But I really don't know. All right, so that kind of wraps up a little bit about the Pantone and how they do color trend and forecasting, and a little bit about what it is and how those colors are pulled. But another kind of group that does trend forecasting is called the Color Marketing Group, or for short, CMG. So they kind of have their own spin and take on color of the year. So here they're predicting for 2020 that it's going to be this Verde Verdad, so this kind of earthy greenish color. So they also send what are called color alerts, so things that they have forecasted previously that they're starting to see out there. So here's a color alert for the blue, like how there's so many different blue shades coming right now. So what I want to do is share with you a small story here about how you can actually take part in a color forecasting event. So what you can do is attend what's called a chromazone. So these events take place across the world. So myself and a colleague of mine took part in a chromazone in Chicago after NeoCon. And I really just wanted to get a firsthand idea on what do they do? What is a forecasting event look like? And I really learned a lot during the process. So a lot of people are curious, how are colors forecasted? What does it look like? So now you kind of get a small insight into what that is. And again, these are open to anyone. So you can go onto the Color Marketing Group's website and look to see where these events are and sign up to be a part of the process yourself as well. So when you do sign up for a chromazone event, they immediately send you some homework. So our homework here was to come up with a couple what they call color stories. So in these, you find images that you really think are going to be reflected into the 2021, because you have to forecast a couple years out. It's not just the next year, but it's the year after that. So we had to think, what are the color stories? What do we think are going to be important in a couple of years? And then answer some of the questions like, what are the influences? What's the driving trend? What industry or products do you see this color being used in? The really cool thing about these types of events is that you get people like yourselves that sign up and they're from different industries. So somebody may be a manufacturer of flooring, and then you could have somebody that also is doing materials for uses like curtains, or you could have somebody that does shoes. You don't really know exactly who's going to be a part of your group until you are there, but you get so many different ideas of, oh wow, I wouldn't have thought that this kind of grayish color could be used in a certain way. So you pull that image, you answer some questions, and then when you get to the chromazone, you will present this and your other color story to a group. So as you start to go through, the groups will kind of start to take notes and figure out, what are some of the trends that everybody's color story has? Is there any specific color? Is there any specific story that we're kind of hearing over and over again? And you start to take those trends that you see and put them into 3 color stories for that chromazone location. So for Chicago, our color stories talked about demagnetism, the new natural, and what we call the curator of tech. So taking those stories and you can read through and see, where did that inspiration come from? Where are we forecasting? And then we also, part of our homework was to bring physical chips of our own color stories. And as you can see on the picture on the right, we took those chips and organized like colors and looked to see, what's the theme? Is there any one color that's really standing out? And what does that look like? So here's an example of the new natural color story and the color chips that we assigned to that. And you can start to also see some of the color naming. So we have in vitro, synthetic C, redune, grounding graphite. So as we start to see some of these colors and color names, I will have to say the hardest part of the entire color story, color workflow event was finding color names. You would not think it would be that difficult. You'd be like, oh, that green, that looks like a mossy green. Well, mossy green might have been a name of a green color 2 years ago. So you really have to think of these new and creative ways to name colors, which I struggled with personally. So again, I mentioned that we do have what we are calling a key color. So what color we kept seeing throughout a lot of different color stories was our grounding graphite. So many of us have this very, very earthy, dark gray that a lot of us saw as with a hint of metallic. That's just something that came up in a lot of our color stories. So we really picked that as our key color. And then ultimately, we will take all of our colors and then they will go from what our original swatch is over on the right-hand side and connotate it into a lot of different color systems, which we will talk about those and how they differ and what that means in a future session. So when we're done with all of that, so all of those color stories and everything that comes together from those chromosomes come and are presented at what is called the International Summit. So this year it's in Tucson, Arizona, and it's November 15th. And again, this is an event anyone can sign up and attend and really be a part of that process of taking all those. So each chromosome event throughout the world will come and say, okay, here's those big pictures, here's the color stories that we came up with. And again, they'll go through, they'll look for similarities and they'll look for those like key colors. And out of this summit, the color marketing group will have their 2021 forecast. So that's a little insight onto how one group does color forecasting. So we talked about Pantone, talked about the color marketing group. The very last thing I want to talk about is you guys. So again, you may want to attend one of these events and be that person that takes place, and you might see inspiration all around you, and you're just trying to figure out like what is the best way for you to capture that and figure out what are those colors that really represent your color story or how you want to, go in your business. So whether it's kind of looking at nature or what you find around you, you go to, travels and you find these bright colors and you want to really capture or get a sense, what is that color in a standard? You can either do that by using a Pantone chip guidebook. So you can carry around a Pantone fan deck and kind of match colors as you see them. Or if you really want to like get a sense, you can carry what's called a capture device. And that capture device you can place on different items and it'll tell you the closest Pantone color. So it's really, really cool. So that is pretty much the summary of our color trends and forecasting, trying to keep you guys a little bit, give you a taste of what that looks like, and hopefully a little more interested in how you can use this or be a part of it if you so choose. So thank you for attending. And if you do have any questions or want additional information, please feel free to reach out to myself. My email address is up on the screen, so you guys can jot that down, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions or point you in the right direction. Thank you very much.